Hi, I'm Kristen Oaks-White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
Well, of all the weather stories that Louisiana could have had, a lack of water seems highly unlikely. Yet the drought and the heat hit Louisiana hard this year. In fact, there was an unprecedented lack of rainfall in many areas of the state, on top of several areas tying or beating temperature records.
Well, that led to a number of wildfires in Louisiana, with days of uncontrolled burns affecting rural areas and farms. At a time when livestock producers needed as much pasture as they could to make hay, wildfires burned up fields, especially in western Louisiana.
Probably 30 or 40% of the pasture was still sort of green and palatable to the cattle. The rest of it has turned, kind of golden and brown. It's stockpiled, so they'll still graze it, but most of the good grazing, it actually got burned in the fires.
Even where pastures didn't burn, the drought took its toll. In the Florida parishes, many areas saw D4 conditions, the highest level of drought classification. In the Feliciana parishes, John Thompson said it was a lost year for his cattle.
They were sustaining themselves. I'm not saying they were gaining any weight. If it was a minimal amount. Most of the time, these calves will gain 2 pounds a day when they're on feed and good pasture, but I don't think they were gaining even a pound a day.
The drought and heat wilted crops across the state. While much of the corn got the early moisture it needed, soybeans took the brunt of the damage. Over the summer, Adam Lemoyne was predicting a drop in his soybean yield of 10 to 15%, which turned out to be optimistic for Louisiana's crop, which suffered far more damage in many areas.
If we stay in this heat, I think within the next 3 weeks it'll look a lot like the ones that are starting to really let go now, starting to really die out. So right now we're at the point it could go either way for a lot of this crop.
Now, in total, initial estimates show Louisiana suffered almost $1.7 billion in damages, with the majority being in timber, soybeans, and cattle.
Other crops like sugarcane were also affected. The Louisiana Farm Bureau is working to get disaster aid for this year's drought, as well as stronger protections for disasters like this in the next farm bill. Now, before all of these stories took the spotlight this summer, Louisiana Farm Bureau members traveled to San Juan, Puerto Rico for the annual meeting of the American Farm Bureau Federation. A few of us made the trip as well and brought back a handful of stories from the U.S. territory.
One of those stories took us into the mountains, where TWILA's Carl Wiggers learned all about his favorite drink, coffee.
On this beautiful mountainside in Puerto Rico is Sandra Farms, named to honor Sandra Gonzalez. Now this is Israel, Sandra's husband, who is living his lifelong dream owning this coffee farm.
I love farming, that is true, since I was about 6 years old. I love it. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's part of me in a sense. So, and I know that we can produce a very, very top-notch coffee here.
Though this mountain environment is ideal for growing coffee, the island of Puerto Rico is often struck by disaster. However, Gonzalez says what all farmers say: you persevere.
If you do what you do here, either you give up or you persevere, find ways. So we hope we can find ways.
This farm has also been on the receiving end of some great relief programs from the USDA. Following one major storm, the farm lost all income, and they were paying workers with their own Social Security income. Gonzalez says without that aid, this farm would not still be in production.
They gave us $125,000. We still have a little of that money. So how long would we have gone with our Social Security income? Not very long at all. For us, totally the whole difference.
Even with federal disaster programs, Gonzalez has yet another obstacle. He cannot run this farm without foreign labor coming to help harvest the crop.
Just can't do it. Who's gonna maintain the farm? Who's going to pick the coffee? They're not here. They left because we don't have a climate of opportunity here.
After the coffee is picked, processed, and roasted, it makes its way from a bag to a grinder and into a cup of coffee. Now, how was it? I must say, as someone who typically supports the sugar and dairy industry with every cup of coffee I drink, I've never had a better cup of coffee in my life. And I'm sure the scenery didn't hurt the experience. Reporting from Ajuntas, Puerto Rico, I'm Carl Wiggers for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
To learn more about Sandra Farms, head over to our website at twilatv.org. We'll also drop a link there for all of the other stories we filmed in Puerto Rico. But don't be surprised if you get the itch to book a trip. And don't say that we didn't warn you.
Oh, I am ready to go back right now. From Puerto Rico to Panama, the TWILA team covered some ground this year. Right after the American Farm Bureau Convention in San Juan, Neil Malasa and I joined the LSU Ag Leadership Program on its international trip to Panama and Costa Rica.
Traveling abroad with farmers and ranchers is always exciting. Neil kicks off a pair of stories with highlights from both Central American countries.
Panama and Costa Rica are both well known as international destinations for both tourist and commerce alike. The LSU Ag Leadership Class 17 started in Panama, which of course has been renowned worldwide for the Panama Canal for more than a century. But the land itself has been inhabited since prehistory by such tribes as the Nagobe, Imbera, and Guna tribes. They had advanced pottery making and metalwork alike. Spanish colonizers also left their mark. This is Panama Viejo, the old city which was used as a base to find gold for the Spanish crown. It was destroyed by the famous Captain Morgan and rebuilt a few miles away. This mostly intact church tower provides a great vista of the city where old and new reside together. Since the Panama Canal was returned to Panama in 2000, it has become a truly international city with investments from all over the U.S. and South America as well as further abroad. Costa Rica, meanwhile, has figured out a way to bring international visitors all on its own. It has branded itself as an ecological haven with many national parks and preserves. The result is greenery and wildlife everywhere. On a single river tour, the class saw monkeys, crocodiles, birds of every feather, and lizards everywhere. Many of these preserved areas were next to and often overlapped the farms of the country. Many of the farms were big agritourism stops, such as the Doca Coffee Farm on the side of Mount Poas, one of 4 volcanoes around the capital city of San Jose. For This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Neil Malasa.
It is awesome.
Darlene Adams-Rowland is a member of LSU Ag Leadership Class 17 and also very interested in farmers markets. As the executive director of the Big River Economic and Agricultural Development Alliance, which runs the Red Stick Farmers Market in Baton Rouge, she feels right at home in the Zapote district of San Jose, Costa Rica.
Every time I travel, the first thing I do is try to find the local farmers market, because you really just get a sense of the pulse of the community, what their traditions are, what they eat. It's where people congregate naturally, and so, to be here on a Sunday morning and just see the amount of produce and that obviously that the community supports is just amazing to see the tie to the agriculture and the people.
With flags flapping in the wind and bright produce on display, Rowland finds some ideas she can share back in Louisiana.
Definitely the way that they use their tables, the height, the way they display the produce, it makes it really visually attractive for the consumer. So I think there's a lot to learn just in each person's presentation of their goods and just the pride that they have and the way they really interact with the public as they walk by and being more forward instead of sort of just sitting back. And I noticed that at our market too. We have some vendors who are a lot more engaging and it works.
If you'd like to see more from our travels to Panama and Costa Rica, we have a playlist of all these stories on our YouTube channel, and members of Class 17 also shared their experiences through blog posts during the trip. We'll link you to those under this video online at our website, twilatv.org. While we try to bring you the best stories possible, some are not all they're quacked up to be.
I'm supposed to say that I can't believe you just said that, but I 100% believe you just said that.
Well, for one, Neil wrote it, and it was a ducky call back, and I'm going to go ahead and just do every pun I can.
If we're done with the puns, let's show you what was one of our more popular stories this year. TWILA's Neil Malasa introduced us to Dale Bordelon, a real Cajun keeping his culture alive through handmade duck calls.
For Dale Bordelon, when it comes to duck calls, louder isn't always better. Here in his shop, fine-tuning his own handmade calls is a lot like finding the right tool for the right job.
Like this old timer told me, anybody can kill a duck, anybody can call a duck to 50 yards, but it's from there to landing that takes a duck caller. And you gotta have a soft call. Ducks working weary to fine-tune them.
Not only does he make the duck calls, but pretty much everything else. He makes the pirogues like this one and the oars that he paddles out in. Even more, he makes these molds he crafts the calls with, and these knives he uses to carve.
So this is how I make my soundboards. I pull it all together, then I take the smooth end, smooth it out, take my sandpaper and I sand it down. And I end up with a perfect dowel pin. It's all around on one side.
Dale spent most of his career working for a nearby grain elevator. However, his passion has always been duck hunting, and over the last 30 years, he's made a career out of it.
I built them like they, did in the 1800s. So I didn't plan on nothing. I just started making calls, and people did. I had a few magazine articles and podcasts, and they just kind of took off. And then people got a hold of them, and then other people seeing. So it's just kind of a word of mouth deal. And I'm doing this full time, so that's a job. I got a job, and I got my son helping me.
Dale makes his duck calls using river cane, which is different than bamboo. It grows best under forest canopies on riverbanks and has a unique property that makes it ideal for Dale's calls.
This is a clumping bamboo versus a river cane. See that river cane, how small? You talk about strong. You can't hardly split that river cane.
His products have won awards and attracted customers from all across the world. For a guy who just wants to hunt, he's busy most days. His calls have a 2-year waiting list.
Whenever my kids got grown and I started doing this as a hobby, and I had a friend of mine that wanted to call, so I made him one. He showed somebody, he wanted one, and next thing you know, 10 people want him. And now I have a waiting list 2 to 3 years long.
For Dale, it's much more than just working with his hands on a hobby. It's about the preservation of a culture that's been handed down since Cajuns first came to Louisiana. The passion for his craft, he says, comes from knowing it will survive another generation.
I love doing it, and the biggest thing of all, I love sharing my Louisiana heritage. That means a lot to me. So if I could just stay healthy like them old people, I'd be happy to keep this going.
Okay, so Dale, I've never blown a duck call before. I want you to show me how we're going to do it here.
Okay, so Neil, you take your index finger and your thumb. You put that exhaust barrel in there. That's just to hold it. You don't kill it. Leave it open just to hold it. Put that call in your mouth like you're drinking out of a Coke bottle. The bottom lip, put the top lip, and you open your mouth up a little bit. There you go. Yeah. All you want to do is 3, 4, 5 notes with the first note longer coming down. Neil, like you never blew a call before. I believe that's pretty good.
Well, thank you. I learned from a master. The only reason I'm any good is because of you. Thank you very much, Dale. And we're going to have a link to Dale's website on our website at twilatv.org, where you can get your very own handmade Louisiana duck call. Reporting for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Neil Molasan.
Now, if you want a handmade duck call of your own, you can get them, but there is a wait. We'll link you over to Dale's website at our website, twilatv.org. Well, 2023 was an election year in Louisiana with candidates vying for all of the top statewide elected positions.
Louisiana Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry, Dr. Mike Strain, ran unopposed. He'll serve a 5th term. That was not the case in the race for governor. At its annual convention, the Louisiana Farm Bureau hosted a gubernatorial forum where 6 candidates fielded questions about how they would handle issues facing the state. And Attorney General Jeff Landry addressed the voting delegates of the Louisiana Farm Bureau. It was Landry who prevailed in the October 14th primary, winning the governor's seat outright with 52% of the votes cast for him.
During the 101st Louisiana Farm Bureau Convention, members recognized the accomplishments of individual farmers and ranchers, farm families, and parish farm bureaus every year.
The highest honor a parish farm bureau can receive is the President's Award. This year marked an unprecedented 4th year in a row win for Vermilion Parish. Parish President Brian Seemaw accepted the award from Farm Bureau President Jim Harper.
Gracie Pepper of Lafourche Parish serves as the 2023 Louisiana Farm Bureau Queen. She'll travel the state and to Washington, D.C., representing the state's largest general farm organization. First runner-up was Isabella Hardy of Jeff Davis Parish. Second runner-up was Cecily Oliver of Calcasieu Parish. And all of the contestants voted Tanner Picanti of Franklin Parish as Miss Congeniality.
Now, there are also a lot of young farmers and ranchers competitions that happen at the Louisiana Farm Bureau Convention. This year's Young Farmers and Ranchers Achievement Award winners were Robert and Rachel Duncan of Rapides Parish. The Duncans grow soybeans, raise cattle, and also grow fresh-cut flowers on their farm in Boyce.
Leah McLean of Vermilion Parish won the 2023 Young Farmers and Ranchers Excellence in Agriculture Award. The award recognizes leadership and involvement in agriculture.
Sadie Michelle of Sabine Parish was named the Outstanding Young Farm Woman for 2023.
And Raquel Manuel of Evangeline Parish won this year's discussion meet.
Next month, both of these winners will head to Salt Lake City, Utah for the American Farm Bureau Convention to compete with other winners around the country. If you'd like to see how they're doing, follow the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation's Facebook and Instagram pages. We'll link you to those on our website at twilatv.org. Still to come on TWILA, you get to laugh at our expense. The TWILA Boost is coming up.
But first, our interns are better than yours. We show you how they contributed to the show. Stay with us. This year we had 2 interns join our team. Trevor Williams came here for the summer from Northwestern State University, and Cecily Oliver is still here with us from LSU through the new year.
Each of them went out into the field to hone their craft and bring us stories. This week, we look back on a couple of our favorites from this year.
Standing behind me are hundreds of colonies of bees here at the Bird and Garden and Museums. Some rescued, some relocated, but all heroes.
The Bird and Museum and Gardens have research facilities on crop pollination and bee resilience. The Louisiana Beekeepers Association works closely with the USDA Bee Lab in Baton Rouge to ensure the health and safety of our honeybees. President of the Capital Area Beekeepers Association, Kevin Langley, says if you enjoy eating, you should thank the honeybees.
If you take the 100 food crops that feed the world, the UN says that bees pollinate about 70% of those. If you walk into a grocery store, 1/3 of the fruit and produce section is pollinated by bees.
The USDA Bee Lab is the oldest bee lab in the country. Coming up on their centennial, their mission is to spread awareness so that people know that honeybees play a critical role in pollinating our crops. Just like Farm Bureau works together to raise up new beekeepers, honeybees work together to take care of their queen, themselves, and their environment. Jennifer Brown, who is a former president of a local Louisiana Beekeepers Association, thinks that humans can learn a lot from our little honeybee friends. In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I'm Trevor Williams for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
These events bring those children out into the real concept of the origin of where their food comes from. Through the hands-on activities that we do here, they're getting to go through the complex system that it takes to get an item to be grown on the farm to the end product of what they get to eat.
Not only are these students getting to participate in hands-on learning activities, but they are getting to see what the product looks and tastes like before it goes on the grocery store shelf.
It tastes like sugar. It's supposed to.
When you do a hands-on activity that they get to also eat, it really sticks.
At fast food farms, students put all their senses to the test. They see the difference between a commodity and the end product.
Just about everything they do or wear or eat, agriculture is part of it.
And now they know that fast food really isn't that fast. In St. James Parish, I am Cecily Oliver for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
To see these full stories, head over to our website at twilatv.org. Also, congratulations to Trevor on your graduation this week from Northwestern State.
Yeah, definitely well earned. Still to come on TWILA, we don't always exactly nail it here on TWILA.
You can say that twice. After the break, we have the proof. We share a few blunders from the year in our final TWILA Boost. Stay with us.
You know, Kristen, there's an ancient Egyptian proverb that goes, if you can't laugh at yourself, laugh at people messing up on TV.
Whatever you say, I don't believe you, but here at TWILA, we've come to learn sharing our behind-the-scenes blunders and bloopers will always spread cheer. So for today's TWILA Boost, we look back at a few of our less than perfect takes in 2023.
We had about 40 just while recording this show.
Fezos?
Fezos.
Fezos.
She's gonna bite your finger off, Neil.
The state's largest general farm organization is selling seasonal. Ah, that's fine. I just screwed it up.
Hot in.
Getting hot.
So hot in here.
Unlike Carl, she did a really good job.
Lame.
And today we're in St. Francisville, Louisiana at 312 Beef, where they exclusively raise, if I can say it right,
Feasting on Agriculture with Kristen Oaks White is brought to you by Neil Melanson.
Herd and Koi Farm ships their fish worldwide, so you can get access to them where, let me start over, sorry.
The Women's Leadership Committee is committee.
This is the finished product, and we're going to take this bag of supreme rice and head over to Fizo's Steakhouse. Fizo's Steakhouse. And head over to Fizo's. Say it one more time for me. To Fizo's Steak. Fizo's.
I make up words.
And head over to Fizo's.
The Women's Leadership Committee is also, did I just say committee again?
Fizo's.
We'll recreate.
Fizo's. Fizo's.
He's doing the fanciful unicorn.
Three, two.
I work with some really uncultured people. What is in this week's show? That's a very good question, Carl. You should ask the producer. It's also the birthplace of Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, but nobody cares.
You said it.
Well, we got to do the whole show over again.
For the record, I can say Fizo's.
Sure about
Fizo's. I said it. Fizo's. Shout out to Josh Meeks, our newest member of the team, for cutting those bloopers together this week. We look forward to seeing more from him in the new year.
Absolutely.
Well, before we go, we want to take this moment to thank the people who make all of this possible. I'm talking about Louisiana's farmers and ranchers.
Without the women and men who take gamble after gamble, persevere through difficult weather, and give thanks when it's good, we would not have clothes on our backs, shelter over our heads, and an abundance of food to enjoy with our families this holiday season.
There would be no Happy Hanukkah, season's greetings, or Merry Christmas without everyone involved in agriculture to provide us with a bountiful harvest for a prosperous new year.
So when you sit down with your family and you return thanks, be sure to include the farmers and ranchers who provide such a feast year after year.
That does it for this edition of TWILA. We're going to take a few weeks off to enjoy the holidays with our families. We hope you do the same.
We'll return with a brand new show in January, just before we head to the American Farm Bureau Convention in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you know exactly when we put out new content.
We'll leave you this week with some of our favorite photos reminding us of why we celebrate this season. From our families to yours, happy holidays.